Okay, so when you create a new Lambda function, this is what it looks like. You get a function that is called handler, and that function gets at least one parameter that is called event. Now, when you connect this function to AWS API gateway, and when somebody hits that API with a get or post or put or whatever request, the API gateway takes that HTTP request and turns it into an event object. That object looks something like this for a GET request, for example. As you can see, the query string parameters are in there somewhere. As another example, this is how a POST request looks with multipart form data. That's the type of request that is generated by the browser, usually when we are uploading a file. Now, I'm used to working with a framework like Rails, where the framework parses the HTTP request and turns it into a nice params object with simple keys and values. So I wanted the same convenience within AWS Lambda. So I decided to write a simple npm package that takes the input event and parses it and simplifies it and makes the end result much more uniform. Let's see all of this in action. To use the package, you just need to add it like you would any other package, and then simply import that function and call it. So let's see what this thing can do. I'm going to set up a simple function that calls the package and just outputs the result that it's getting back from the package. We will then connect the Lambda function to an HTTP API based on API gateway and get a new endpoint. Next, we're going to use Postman to hit that URL with different request types so that you can have a look at how the package works and what kind of result it gets. First, let's hit it with a GET request with simple query string parameters. As you can see, the output has three parts. 1, the user agent. 2, the original event, just in case you want it for some reason. 3, the params object. And that params object has taken the query string parameters and just neatly turned it into keys and values in a JSON object. That's it. Now you can add your special sauce. Next, let's hit the API with a post request of multipart form data. And not only that, we'll send a file instead just plain old text fields. Here again, you'll see the old query string parameters from the GET request side of things, as well as post parameters, as well as the file. Now, what the package is doing is it's taking the contents of a file and saving the file inside the temp folder provided by AWS Lambda. A file object is created in the params that has all the details related to the file, like the name, the path, etc. You must note here, however, that the max file size as of this moment is 500 MB. So larger files than that should probably go to S3, and just a reference or a link to those files should be passed to the Lambda function. Also, it should be noted that this file will not stick around for multiple invocations of the Lambda function. It will be there for the current invocation only. And once the current invocation is over, the file will no longer be available. Next, let's hit the URL with URL encoded form data, which is the standard HTML form. Here again, you get a nice params object. Finally, let's hit it with JSON and XML. Because in the case of JSON and XML, based on the content type of the HTTP request, it will automatically decide how to parse the body data and turn that into a JSON object in both cases. So let's hit it with some XML first. And as you can see, you get a nice param object made up of the parsed XML. Finally, let's hit it with some JSON. And as you can see, the JSON is passed and added to the params object. Few things to note over here. In the case of JSON and XML, if the body is malformed in some way, then you're going to get an extra parameter clearly indicating that it is malformed. A nice friendly error message. Let's look at that. Finally, in the case of JSON and XML, also the body of the JSON and XML string will be extracted from the event object and passed as a separate JSON and XML string parameter. This is also added just for your convenience. And that's all. Hope you find this package useful and make awesome things.